Chris, good to see you, my friend. I ask you this question. Like I said to these guys in the first block, you usually don't have turning points in a race sort of signposted in advance where you can see them coming. They usually happen in a more spontaneous way. But this one feels, because of the Bloomberg factor, feels like a big moment that we can predict it's going to be a big moment. Good or bad, which way it'll go, we don't know. Does it feel like that to you?
Yeah, and I hope that the candidates who have been telegraphing their punches against Sanders, Senator Sanders, are actually going to deliver them. I mean, I hope they actually do what they promised to do. Are they going to go after him about the bad behavior of Bernie's supporters or not? Is this how they do things in Denmark? I mean, this is a preview of coming attractions, these people. He says he can't control them, but I think he's going to be called to account by the other candidates because they seem to have a hesitancy or a fear of going after his ideology, going after his self-declared socialism, or even about the doability of all the things he says he's going to do in a Congress that's split right now. Everybody knows half the U.S. Senate's run by Republicans. It'll be half run by Republicans next time. And it takes 60 votes to get any of this stuff through. And yet nobody just says the obvious. Bernie, you're full of it. None of this is going to get passed. You're going to be a miserable president, frustrated from the first day, because you're not going to get Medicare for all. You're not going to get free college tuition for public universities. You're not going to get payoffs of all student loans. None of this is going to happen. And you're just going to sit there and stew in it. So why don't they bring that up? I do not understand why they don't bring that up.
Chris, do you not think that at least on some level for these candidates that they're just thinking about what's going to happen down the road, that if they become the nominee and they're not Bernie Sanders, that any of the other candidates eventually prevails, that they're going to have to put the party back together to take on Donald Trump, and that they're concerned, especially having watched the behavior of some of Bernie's supporters, the behavior that they see, I want to say they see as cult-like, that Joe Biden yesterday said was like Trump supporters, only from the left rather than the right, that they're worried about alienating those people that they're going to need to beat Trump down the line, so they handle him with kid gloves.
John, that is the chicken way they're doing it. They have to look at the way Harry Truman looked at it in 48. He was assaulted on the left by the breakaway of Henry Wallace. And he said, go ahead, go your way. And he had Strom Thurmond on the right, the segregationist crowd. They went the other way. He still beat Dewey. In the end, you have to go where you believe. Are they centrist Democrats? Are they moderate Democrats who believe in a market system and a safety net and decent regulation, the kind of government we've had for the modern 20th century, 21st century? Do they believe in that tradition of Kennedy and Roosevelt and Obama, or don't they? If they want to depart from the whole tradition of the party and go hard left, yet. But they don't want to do that. They're just pandering to the Bernie people. And you know what pandering gets you? Nothing. It certainly doesn't get you respect. They've got to get out there and say, I disagree with socialism. I believe in the markets.
Right.
I think he's wrong. I think he'll never get it done. And in this country, we'll never go that direction. And by the way, we'll lose 49 states. And by the way, John Heilman, I was there in 1972 at the Democratic Convention, where the people on the left were dancing in glee. I saw them. They were literally, John Kenneth Galbraith, dancing in a circle. They were so happy that they defeated the moderates by Tip O'Neill and Dick Daley, and they went on to lose 49 states in their glee. So that can happen again. So, Chris, so clearly, that's what I see. It could happen again.
So, Chris, we have one person here on this set who dealt with this matter in 2016. Jennifer Palmieri, you were with a candidate named Hillary Clinton who ultimately beat Bernie Sanders, beat him fair and square. The DNC did some stuff that a lot of people think is a little hinky now in retrospect, but she beat him. She beat him because she had a broader coalition of voters. She could appeal to black voters. She could appeal to Hispanic voters that he did not do in 2016. And then you guys were confronted with the challenge of trying to put that party back together in Philadelphia, and you did not fully succeed. So I ask you, as we go forward, Chris makes a valid point, but I ask you, like, as you look at these other candidates who are going to be confronted if they win with the same challenge you faced in 2016, what did you learn in 16 about what works and what doesn't work in terms of trying to bring Sanders people into the bigger tent, the bigger fold of the Democratic Party?
Right. So we steered away from making the kind of arguments that Chris just made because we were trying to keep a big tent, but we also were in a two-person race, so we had the room to do that, right? So Hillary won. She got 4 million more votes. I think Chris is right that in this multi-candidate field, you have to have a harder edge against Sanders and make the argument about like what he's not going to be able to do. And there are people who were just never going to come our way. They just never, ever were. And to build your campaign assuming that you can win over the hardest core of Sanders supporters is a folly to me. You're going to have to get voters someplace else. And I know that's really hard, but there are some people are just never, ever going to leave him.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.